Good morning, Summa scholars. Welcome to the Daily Summa. Today is Saturday, March 15th, first week of Lent. And welcome to the thunderstorm in the Shire.
Yeah, I wonder if they can hear that.
What do you mean?
I wonder if they can hear the thunder. I'm not sure.
I think they can because on some of the others you can hear like the dog or...
Yeah, possible.
Well, you might notice, people, that we are in a different place. We're actually in the same place, but a different part of the place. And Joe is here with me in person. Right, Joe?
That's right.
I'm looking you in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
This feels more like a show because you're opposed to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always opposed to you.
That's a good one. Nice. As you'll see later in this page, there's also a little pun we both just did without you fully knowing it, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, we're here in the Shire, folks. And beautifully, the rain has just started coming down. Ooh, do you see that lightning?
I think they probably did.
It's so good. And we have the Shire music playing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but
we're back on Facebook, so we might meet Germ today. It's possible.
Ooh, I hope we do get Germ. That's right, folks. Yeah, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Summa. We'll get to the Summa soon enough. And we do have a rather challenging page today. Today is going to talk about numbers, math, a little geometry, of course, a heavy dose of philosophy. So this is one of those pages where we're just going to have to buckle up and get through it, and we'll see if we can get any enlightenment on what Thomas is telling us in this page. Also, you should know, we're not in an isolated room today, so there are animals about. Yeah. We've got a cat who is doing its morning freak out, and then we have a dog that could start barking or who knows what. Is that dog sitting over there in that chair? She managed to get up in that chair.
I think so.
Even though I kind of blocked it off a little bit. Good job, Daisy. If you followed the Daily Summa, you have met Daisy before.
Mm-hmm. All right,
You want to kill it?
Yeah.
Alexa, cancel the music, please. Alexa, thank you very much.
You are so very welcome.
Why do you thank the robot? I don't understand.
So I can hear her say, "You are so very welcome." Here, let's have it. Alexa, tell us a joke for today.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with that right now.
This is why you don't.
Every time, like she does it every time, but here she doesn't want to. It's stage fright. Like she knows the live stream. I'm sure we could work out some kind of conspiracy theory around that. Like she's not going to talk when there's live stream video playing.
Yeah, I'm like Will Smith at the beginning of iRobot. Like, I hate them. I don't want to be nice to them.
Yeah. Well, you're like that with many actual humans too, so I don't see the difference really. It just seems
it's not quite the same degree. No, not the same degree, I wouldn't say. It's a special hatred I have for Alexas, Google Homes, and all that baloney.
Alexa, Joe hates you. What do you think of that?
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Me either, Alexa, to tell you the truth. I can't wait to go have a pipe out in this rain on the porch.
Be good.
But unfortunately, I don't know if this is going to be a short class. That'd be funny if it was a short class, though. For those maybe joining on Facebook who don't know, we do a daily Summa every day in the morning, starting a page, and we read one page of Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. For those friends who knew me at the University of St. Thomas, you'll be like, wow, Craig is teaching St. Thomas from our alma mater. Do you know what alma mater means?
No idea.
You know it's like the school you went to.
Yeah.
But the words mean alma mater. Mater is mother, and alma is milk. Mother's milk. Okay. That's what your university, your teaching should be. And that's what it should be for you guys here at the Daily Summa. It should be mother's milk. Remember what Thomas said at the very beginning. This is supposed to be milk of the word. So it all fits nicely. We're having our little morning sip of milk, just like Joe with his heavy whipping cream in the coffee. How's your coffee, by the way, Joe?
Good. It is the exclusive reason why we are late. So I'm happy about it.
Are you saying that it's my fault that we're late?
No,
First of all, we're like 4 minutes late.
You said, I want to make some coffee. And I looked at the time and I said, please do.
I said, I want to make some coffee for you.
Yeah.
Why do you take out the part that makes it that I'm
I'm-
generously doing something for you, and you just make it sound like, oh, he wanted to make a cup of coffee. That's why you guys are 4 minutes late.
I'm
See
saying,
how you are?
I
You
think
twist
I think it
things.
was more than 4
You
minutes.
twist
It
things.
was like 20 minutes late, but
Is it really?
yeah, it's like
How is it 20 minutes late? It
because
was.
you made the whole coffee. Coffee
Oh,
process
I
takes forever.
forgot that it's 9 o'clock. I
Yeah.
did the same thing I did last time. I thought it was
Yeah.
9:15, just
Yeah.
like 7:15. We normally do this 7:15 every morning on the weekdays. On Saturday, we do it at 9 a.m. and I forgot. I thought it was 9:15.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying that I saw the time. I saw you say what you say,
Mhm.
and I said, "Oh my gosh, I want coffee so bad. I don't care how late we are. Please do that."
That's probably valid too. Plus, another thing we have very clearly in our minds is nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Okay, so shall we just dive in, and then if I think of anything to say later, then we'll say it.
Here we go.
Enjoy the beautiful background, guys. The lovely home of these beautiful, beautiful human beings who are at another part of the world right now, going on hikes up live volcanoes and whitewater rafting and all kinds of adventure. But we're about to take an adventure deeper into the Summa Theologiae. Remember, this is an extended meditation on the presence of God. And today we're going to be discussing this presence as it applies to one and many. Article 2, question 11, Article 2, whether one and many are opposed to each other. There goes the cat freaking out. That would be so great if it doesn't normally jump up here unless I'm gone, and it comes and messes with things, like we said, this gaslighting cat. But that would be rather funny, or if it knocked over the tripod. Question 11, Article 2, Daily Summa. The thing I was going to say. We're just going to read through the objections, and I'm even going to just read through the I answer that section. That's usually where I stop and give a little more fleshing out of it. But this stuff is so complex and strange, and he uses so many philosophicalisms that it just gets mind-bending. But over in the replies to objection 2, 3, and 4, we get some more clarification. So we'll see if we can just zip through and then kind of get to the more clarification part. One of my original ideas was just to read the Summa, almost like an audiobook, do an audiobook of the Daily Summa. So just think of it like the audiobook, except there may be a shtickle commentary here and there. All right, unity of God, Article 2, whether one and many are opposed to each other. Objection 1, and for those who might just be joining on Facebook, we are on a beaver galleon. We're on a galleon full of beavers here, and the first beaver, you're not going to know what the heck we're talking about. Go back and watch the other episodes.
For those of you joining on Facebook, here's something that makes absolutely no sense to help you understand what's going on.
Well, most of the Facebook people are old fans of Sideshow Tramps and Craig Kinsey, and they're probably used to me saying things that make no sense.
Fair enough.
Objection 1. This is Larry with his do-rag and pirate beaver. Objection 1, Larry says, it seems that one and many are not mutually opposed. For no opposite thing is predicated of its opposite. For no opposite thing is predicated of its opposite. You got that right, John? Sure. But every multitude is in a certain way one, as appears from the preceding article. Therefore, one is not opposed to multitude. For those who might just be joining too, the Summa starts off with objections to the premise. These are like students sitting around the teacher, and they're giving him questions and trying to knock down what he's saying and oppose what he's saying. So everything in these first objections are not the right answer. They're disagreements. Then Thomas is going to come with an on the contrary, which is an argument from authority, the weakest kind of argument. He sets it up with a little argument from authority. And then in the next part, the respondio, he says, I answered that. And he gives the rational explanation for what he has just said. And then after that, he replies to each one of the objections.
I put a picture of Larry up for everyone to see.
Did you?
Yeah.
Can you put a picture up of the Beaver Galleon just in case we have some new folks over on Facebook? Please.
It's not on your computer. I can't do it. If I was on my computer at home, I could do it. I can't do it from here.
That's a great answer. I just don't like it.
Good for you.
But how do you have a picture of Larry up there?
It was already on here.
In your slides?
It was already on here.
Do you have a picture of our travel through the desert?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you pop that up?
Sure.
Guys, we're in Lent. We're in the first week of Lent, and it already feels like the fifth week to me. Although we have some nice breaks in this land. And then Monday is St. Patrick's Day, which I will not be fasting on St. Patty's Day. So I'll be celebrating. So that's kind of wonderful. And then the day, 2 days after St. Patty's Day, I think, is the feast of St. Joseph, the husband of Mary. So another feast. It's very nicely broken up with fasts this year because it's a lunar movement. Listen to that rain coming down. It's so beautiful out here, guys.
Good.
Wish you could see it. A lot of land, and then 100-acre woods, upper pond, lower pond, the shed.
Possible I can just
the shed that I used to live in.
Why
as
not?
a hermit.
Just
want to show them?
Yeah, why not? You know, it should be pretty easy.
Spin around,
See
guys.
if we can get some.
Can they see the shed that I used to live in?
Let's see. Yeah, we can do that. I can zoom in on it a little bit.
Wow, Joe. See what happens when you got Joe around, folks?
It's the shack he used to live in. Look at that.
Well, we call it a hermitage, but okay.
Well, you call it the shed. I call it a shack. That's pretty close.
It's St. Clair's hermitage. I entered into that hermitage on the feast of St. Clair, who's the friend, of course, of St. Francis of Assisi, the bird guy.
The bird guy. That's what he's. Yeah, he's the bird guy.
Sorry, St. Francis. You know that I know more. I'm just for the for the ignorant masses, or as Aaron Balzac said, for the unwashed masses.
Yeah. Did you want to say something about the map? I put it up.
That map is signifying the trip of the children of Israel through the desert on the way to the Promised Land. And there are 40 days in Lent. There were 40 years in the desert. Those are all the campsites that they camped at. And as I do Lent, I started this 2 or 3 years ago as a fun little tradition. I like to have fun, in case you know. Craig's just like to have fun. I think Cindy Lauper said that. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to get like a map with the thing? And then I realized there were 42 days, and then there's pre-days then there's days of the Triduum. Kind of worked out beautifully. So I just take this little skull that I have over on this table back here, and I move it all through the thing. And then I read from scripture what was happening at each one of these encampments. I think today, where are we?
If I'm doing it properly, I cannot possibly read that.
Trying to remember, is it a big word? Is there a little firecracker thing by it, or is that tomorrow's?
Yeah, there's a little firecracker thing by it. It has a.
Today we are at Rephidim.
There we go. Yep,
Rephidim is a very significant place. Rephidim is the first place that the children of Israel were attacked in the desert, and they were attacked by a tribe called Amalek, and that will figure heavy into the entire future of the human race, and even today. Amalek attacked Israel. It was the first time that they had to battle, and they defeated them. But Amalek, the rabbis say that the hot bath of Israel, by hot bath it means this powerful force, because they had just been brought out of Egypt. They had just experienced this miraculous deliverance. So everyone in the region was afraid of them. Their God had fought for them in this terrible way. So they were a hot bath of military, well, not military. They were a hot bath of fear for the other nations. And Amalek came in, and even though they defeated Amalek, the rabbis say they cooled that hot bath a little bit, because Israel had to face battle and difficulties, just like we do in life. And when we hit those first hard battles, it kind of messes with our confidence a little bit. So that was the first time that there had been this battle. And then, of course, Amalek, this is so appropriate, Joe, that it happens today. Amalek is also the progenitor. Amalek came from Edom, Esau. So Amalek is one of Esau's sons, which is another arch enemy of Israel, because Esau is Jacob's brother, and Esau said that I will kill you. That's one of the traits of Esau, that I will kill you. So Amalek is descended from Esau, and then one of Amalek's descendants was Haman, who in today's feast of Purim, which it's Shabbat today in the Israeli world, in the Israel world, but it's still a continued Purim, because Purim continues tomorrow. Don't need to go into all of it, but we're still kind of in Purim. And Purim is the story of the book of Esther in the Bible, and Haman was the one who wanted to annihilate all the Jews in the kingdom of Persia. and he was a son of Amalek. So the battle with Amalek still continued there, and Amalek was still trying to kill all the Jews. And then there are many reasons why people believe that Hitler was also a descendant of Amalek. And if he was not, at least genetically, spiritually, certainly. And there's a lot more that could be said about that, but guess what? That's a nighttime teaching, table talk. All right, a reply to objection 2.
You mean just objection 2, right?
Objection 2. Thank you, Joe. Objection 2 is from Ralph. Ralph says, further, no opposite thing is constituted by its opposite, but multitude is constituted by one. Therefore, it is not opposed to multitude. He's talking about that whole thing about one being a multiples or multiples of one. So one is just, multiples are just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Therefore, it is not opposed to multitude because it's all 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Objection 3, Shimon. I like to use what the Gemara uses just as a kind of a joke. For those who know, you know. Like maybe, I wonder if my buddy, who knows who's watching out there, who might know what that means. You know who I mean if you know who I mean. Shimon. Further, one is opposed to one, but the idea of few is opposed to many. Therefore, one is not opposed to many. All right. Objection 4, which is Reuben. Further, if one is opposed to multitude, it is opposed as the undivided is to the divided. And it is thus opposed to it as privation is to habit. But this appears to be incongruous, because it would follow that one comes after multitude and is defined by it, whereas, on the contrary, multitude is defined by one. Hence, there would be a vicious circle in the definition, which is inadmissible. Therefore, one and many are not opposed. Okay. Again, we're just going to move on and hit it up at the responses. On the contrary, here comes argument from authority, the weakest form of argument. Things which are opposed in idea are themselves opposed to each other, but the idea of one consists in indivisibility, and the idea of multitude contains division. Therefore, one and many are opposed to each other. One and many are opposed to each other, dude. Therefore, one and many are opposed to each other. Again, we'll keep going and then we'll pick it up later. I answer that. One is opposed to many. This is the rational response. Respondio. One is opposed to many, but in various ways. Always with the ways and distinctions in philosophy. The one which is the principle of number is opposed to multitude, which is number, as the measure is opposed to the thing measured. For one implies the idea of a primary measure, and number is multitude measured by one, as is clear from the metaphysics. But the one which is convertible with being is opposed to multitude by way of privation, as the undivided is to the thing divided. But the one which is convertible with being is opposed to multitude by way of privation. Okay, so think about it like this. There's two different ways to think of one and multitude. And it has to do with our rational ability as humans, the thing that dogs and cats cannot do. But we also share a type of life with the dogs and cats. That is, if I have one pin here, I see that it's one pin, I feel that it's one pin, I apprehend this pin. If I were to throw this pin on the ground while the cat was sleeping, the cat might jump up and the cat might sniff the pin. The cat knows there's one pin, but only in the way of just knowing there's this one thing in front of it. But the cat cannot take a higher level and contemplate one as one in an intellectual exercise. Nor can the cat start dividing this pin up in its mind into parts. It can, if I were to take another pin and mark this pin with 10 separate places, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and have 10 separate places in this pin, then I can tell everybody, think of this pin as 10 parts, 10 sections. Now we're getting into mathematics and we're taking a rational leap out of the material world. We're no longer just bound to the oneness of this pin, but we can think of this pin as divided into 10. Then I can start asking questions about the divisions. How many I could say to someone, point to the one part that is on the two parts that are either side of half. And then they might point to 5 and 6. Because in your mind, you can say, well, half is right here. And the one half is 5. And then after that is 6. You can start doing these mathematical computations in your mind, which dogs and cats are not capable of doing. So Thomas is highlighting, remember, we're meditating on the presence of God. He's highlighting the difference between a human, and this is also what Chesterton does in a different kind of way, in a more poetic way, in his book, Everlasting Man. We're showing, making it clear to you, which through your daily life you may not fully pause and meditate on, but he's making it clear to you the difference between the material world and the apprehension of those who are bound in nature. Cats, dogs, plants, they may be holotropic, follow the sun, but they're still bound to just their nature without any comprehension that there's one sun or two heavenly bodies very visible in the sky, sun and moon. They don't think that way. They just do what their nature and their impulses dictate. Thomas is wanting to highlight to you that we have this strange capability of going to a higher level of reflecting back on the thing and making intellectual divisions, logical distinctions. So just keep that in mind. When he's talking about one and multitude, there is a one, that is this pen. Then there's multitude, which is 2 or 3 pens. And those are in this material natural world. But then there's also, take away the 1 pen. Now you don't have 2, you just have 1. But I can also, as I said, divide this up in my mind into 10. If I do that, everyone in the room sees that happen in their mind, in that sense of seeing. And that's a very important distinction to make when we use the word see. You have sight with your eyes, but you also see that there's 10 divisions. If I say that and there's people sitting around in the room, they immediately see 10 divisions in the pen. But the cat and the dog do not. Nothing changes in their consciousness. They just still see 1 pen. So just be aware, Thomas is going to start playing with this dynamic between the material natural world and then the spiritual world, which has this ability to begin to ascend the mountain towards the one, which is ipsum esse, one, the first cause, that which has no potency, which is just act, that thing which we commonly refer to as God. Okay, so just remember that. So let's go back to this. I answer that with that in mind. Skim through it again and then go to the replies to objections. And then we'll go deeper into this whole thing. Everything going well over there, Joe?
Yep.
All right. I answer that. We're going to read it again, the I answer that part. One is opposed to many, but in various ways. The one which is the principle of number is opposed to multitude, which is number, and as the measure is to the thing measured. One is opposed to many in number. Now we're in that intellectual realm. In that realm, one is opposed to many, because here's 1 and here's 5. 5 is different than 1. If I say, what is 5 minus 1? You say 4. That's an opposition, that's a difference, that's a separation. But if we bump back down into the natural world of the pen, even though I say, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of this pen. If I say to you, what point to the first section? Everybody's going to point right here. If I say point to the section that is the 4th section minus 1. Now you're going to point to 1, 2, 3, 4 minus 1, the 3rd section. You've done that in your mind, but the whole time we're doing that, the pen remains 1. There's no real division in the pen. 1 as opposed to many as in number, as the measure is to the thing measured. But wait, the one which is in principle of number is opposed to multitude, which is number, as the measure is to the thing measured. The measure of 10 is opposed to the thing measured because the thing measured is just 1. There's a difference between 10 and 1. So the whole time that we're talking about 10 here in the pen, we have to also realize it's really, if you want to use the word really, it's in the natural manner of speaking, of apprehending, 1. It is both 1 and 10 in 2 different ways. Distinctions, philosophy. For 1 implies the idea of a primary measure, and number is multitude measured by 1. That's again what we said. 1 is multitude is measured by 1. So if you have 4 things, you really have 4 sets of 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, and we call that 4. For 1 implies the idea of a primary measure, and number is multitude measured by 1, as is clear from the Metaphysics, talking about Aristotle. But the one which is convertible with being is opposed to multitude by way of privation. The one which is convertible to being is opposed to multitude by way of privation. If now you go to the natural world, not the idea world, and you take something away from it, now that's opposed. If I actually remove this cap or whatever, the front part of it, now in the material world I move, that's privation. And now I take the first part off. Let's say this cap is part of that first part of the tin. Now I take it off. Now we do have now we have a -1 in privation, in matter. The first time I said take away 1 in your mind, but the 1 remains. But if I take that first part off in the natural world, now you have a different kind of subtraction. You have a privation. Okay, the one is convertible with being is opposed to multitude by way of privation, as the undivided is to the thing divided. If something is undivided, it is not divided. It is 1. So we're playing with the idea, concepts and principles of 1, division, intellect, and matter. Okay, now let's go to the replies to objection. Thomas really gives some examples here that flesh it out more. How are we doing on time? We started late, so now I'm all...
We're at about 27 minutes.
Ooh, we got all the time in the world. We got some sun coming out too. The storm passed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thomas is going to reply to Larry. Do we have anybody online?
A couple people. Let's see. We have 2 people on YouTube and a couple
because
people
it's Saturday.
on X.
We have some people on X?
Yep.
I don't know why I'm waving. Play Freebird. Alexa, play Freebird.
Why would you do that? Good. Anybody we did have is going to go now.
I don't know if I ever told you. Did I tell you about the Freebird? Yeah. I'll not say the word here, but there's a word called a-hole. And we used to, okay, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
Too much.
There is a phenomena I'm sure everyone's familiar with people in the audience yelling, play Freebird. And so years ago, Sideshow Tramps decided to make a Freebird A-hole award, like a little medallion that says Freebird A-hole award, and with like a lanyard, you know. And so if somebody in the audience yells, play Freebird, stop the show. Who said that? Go out and put the Freebird A-hole award on the head. And then, of course, later, my artist friend, Jack Massing, duped me. I told you that one too?
Yeah.
Told me that he was the one who started that, people yelling Freebird. In college, he said he went around to all these venues and shows and would yell, play Freebird, and then it just took off and started to ask him, really? You're the one who started? He was like, yeah, they even wrote an article about it back in college. Of course, he didn't produce the article. That should have been number 1. Yeah. But I trusted you, Jack. I trusted you. I shouldn't have, though. He's a performance artist and a wild dude.
You can't trust artists just in general, you know.
That's true. But anyway, he goes, I was doing a CD release party, and he says, I'm going to come and yell. I've decided I'm going to come and yell Freebird for the last time. I'm going to retire my yelling of Freebird. So I got up there in front of everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an auspicious night tonight. The artist, Jack Massing from the Art Guys, is in the audience. He's the one who started yelling Freebird, and he's going to do it tonight for the last time. And so we did the show, and at some random point, he yells out, "Play Free Bird," and stop the show. And that was the last time, everybody. And then it was all BS.
Yep.
Oh, Jack. But still, that makes a good art piece.
Yeah, that's true.
I was glad to be part of that art piece.
Mhm.
It's Andy Kaufman stuff, dude.
Yeah.
We love it. Okay. Speaking of Andy, we should name one of these beavers Andy. Okay. Get my thing that Joe gave me. Reply to objection 1. Thomas is going to reply to Larry. Now, buckle up, everybody. This galleon, this beaver galleon, is about to go through some choppy water. Thomas is going to say some comedic, in my opinion. I know that a lot of Thomistic teachers take it very seriously. They would read this very like, it's like people who read prayers and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so grating. What do they say these days? Cringy.
It can be
Saying
cringy.
prayers and doing religious stuff as if it's this very serious, dark, I don't know how to explain it. It's strange. But the beautiful thing is when I go to the monastery, and this is true of most monasteries because I've been to a few and I lived in one for a while. People, after being in a real sort of dedicated life of prayer, separated from the world and all the news and all the stuff that turns people into hateful, confused, anxious creatures, they are just chill. They do the Psalms and read the stuff, and they're drinking from their coffee out of their thermos while they're doing it. And if something happens outside the door, they laugh and like while they're still chanting. It's light.
Well, it's taking yourself seriously. That's what it is. That's the problem. That's
That is the problem.
part.
Cringing, yeah, it's taking yourself too seriously.
It's like I must read this in the voice that is like the most grave thing I've ever read in my life because I am so important and I want this to work for me. So like,
and to what's the other word they use nowadays that I really like, where you represent to someone, you're like, it would be like facade, like fronting. They would say fronting, but virtue signaling. Signaling that you're, look at me. This reminds me of a beautiful story from the monastery. I'll write it down because I want to get going on this. We'll do this funny little part from Thomas, and then I'll go back and tell this other story of how cool the nuns are and this awesome thing when a fox and its babies, a female fox, a mother fox and its babies showed up outside the window at the monastery. It was so beautiful.
That's what they are, right?
Do what?
Foxes are vixen.
Are they?
Right. I don't know.
Vixen? Is that why you say she's such a vixen?
I think so.
That would be beautiful.
I'm gonna find out right now.
Do some research. I'll do this reading and then you tell me. You give me the
That's
reply.
cool. I'm not gonna listen to the
Tinder hooks, folks. We got this beaver galleon has cliffhangers. Okay. Reply to objection 1. Tom,
yeah, that's what it was.
You've lost our cliffhangers. There might have been people who are just like, I want to get out of this. I don't want to hear about this philosophy, but I got to find out if they have phones too.
Yeah, they probably just looked it up already.
All right, let's go. Reply to objection 1. Larry, get ready. Buckle up, Larry. Here goes St. Thomas. No privation entirely takes away the being of a thing, inasmuch as privation means negation in the subject, according to the philosopher in the categories. Nevertheless, every privation takes away some being. And so, in being, by reason of its universality, the privation of being has its foundation in being, which is not the cause of privations of special forms, as of sight, or of whiteness, and the like. And what applies to being applies also to one and to good, which are convertible with being. For the privation of good is founded in some good. Likewise, the removal of unity is founded in some one thing. Hence it happens that multitude is some one thing, and evil is some good thing, and non-being is some kind of being. Nevertheless, opposite is not predicated of opposite, for as much as one is absolute and the other is relative, for what is relative being, as a potentiality, is non-being absolutely, i.e. actually. Or what is absolute being in the genus of substance is non-being relatively as regards some accidental being. In the same way, what is relatively good is absolutely bad, or vice versa. Likewise, what is absolutely one is relatively many, and vice versa. Got it?
Do you see the brain dribbling out of my ear? Do you see that?
Larry is sitting there going, looking around at everybody, nodding his head.
Yeah, I get it. I really get it.
I lost track of it somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That's why we're going to go to the next objection and just give the post-game wrap-up. Also, if people are first joining and don't know about life on this beaver galleon here at the Daily Summa, as we sail through these waters of being and nothingness, you should know that sometimes you go through a storm. And we should also know this is a quick flyover, mixing our metaphors to aeronautics all of a sudden.
Beautiful.
This is a quick flyover of Thomas. We could spend, again, as I've said before, a whole semester on this page. That's not what's going on here. We're doing a quick flyover, getting a sense of the Summa, and then getting kind of a summary of the summary, and then moving on. This is a daily Summa thing. It's about catechesis, sure, and camaraderie. Speaking of camaraderie, wasn't that Summa party great? I know we said it yesterday. We're just repeating. It was so awesome. We're still on the buzz from it. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just saying, with mixing metaphors, we're in the beaver galleon, we're flying over. There's a way you can do both.
You're not going to bring in D&D airships.
No, I'm talking. No, I'm not even. I'm talking real life.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Okay.
Beaver Zeppelin. I mean, just play with it.
Beaver Zeppelin.
It doesn't have to be all the time. It can be a special occasion.
Alexa, play Black Dog.
Here's the Black Dog by Taylor Swift.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. I didn't say the Black Dog.
You can't.
Alexa, play Black Dog by Led Zeppelin.
Here's Black Dog Remastered by Led
We got to get that,
on Amazon Music.
even though Taylor Swift's an awesome songwriter.
We can never, ever let you sit out here again.
Dude, it's too fun.
This is.
I've got to. Man, we did this song once live. It's really nice in a small room. Alexa, stop.
It's just playing like 3 seconds of a song for no reason.
I got to get
Killing
Alexa in the normal show now. It's
No,
too good.
no, absolutely not. That cannot be.
This dog is like, what's going on, Craig? I'm Black Dog. Come here, baby. Come here, sweetie pie. This dog's like, yes, sir. I'm ready. Whatever you need. Okay, so
I don't even know where we're at. Are we going to objection?
we're reply to objection 2,
Okay.
which is reply to Ralph. I'll read that, and then I got to tell this fox story in the monastery with the
Oh,
nuns.
that's right. Yeah.
Black Dog, you're gonna have to go because I've got to teach Thomas Aquinas. Okay, we'll be back.
This one's a mess in particular. I feel like
What one?
the show in particular.
This stream?
Yeah,
This is gonna be one of our best ever.
I know, but it's also a mess. It's my favorite part.
Oh,
about
all
it.
of the Sideshow Tramp shows were a mess.
Yeah,
Tell them,
I
folks,
know.
in the comments, you who that were there. Reply to objection dose. A whole is twofold. Okay. In one sense, it is homogeneous, composed of like parts. In another sense, it is heterogeneous, composed of dissimilar parts. Now, in every homogeneous whole, the whole is made up of parts having the form of the whole. As for instance, now we're going to get a nice, sweet example.
Well, before you get deep into this, why do you say homogeneous and not homogeneous?
Same ways, sometimes I'll say theologia, and sometimes I'll say theologica for funsies.
These are fun. Okay.
What do you like, homogeneous? You're like,
I
because
mean,
of the milk? Are you just reference
Well, I
back to the
speak
milk
English.
thing?
I speak English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now it's homogeneous from now on forever. Whenever you're around, having the form of the whole. As for instance,
Hey, Steve's here. Look at that.
oh, hey, Steve. Good to see you, man. And it was so good to see you at the Summa party, the
Amen.
decade party.
Amen.
As for instance, if you've missed the first part of this, Steve, you got to go back and watch the beginning of it. It's too good. We had some Led Zeppelin. We had some Taylor Swift. All right. Having the form of the whole. As for instance, every part of water is water. That would be homogeneous. And such is the constitution of a continuous thing made up of its parts. In every heterogeneous whole, however, every part is wanting in the form belonging to the whole. As for instance, another sweet, sweet example. Here's one for Asian, by the way. No part of a house is a house. Let's do galleon. No part of a galleon is a galleon, nor is any part of a man a man. Now, multitude is such a kind of a multitude. Therefore, inasmuch as its part has not the form of the multitude, the latter is composed of unities. As a house or a galleon is composed of not houses, galleons aren't composed of galleons. The compositions make up galleon. Not indeed as if unities constituted multitude so far as they are undivided, in which way they are opposed to multitude. But so far as they have being, as also the parts of a house make up the house, by the fact that they are beings, not by the fact that they are not houses.
Steve said, Alexa, stop.
Yeah. If the parts of a galleon, but so far as they have being, as also the parts of a galleon make up the galleon by the fact that they are beings, not by the fact that they are not galleons. If you talk about the mast, it makes up the parts of the galleon, the mast, the captain's quarters, the poop deck. It makes up parts of the galleon, and each of those have being. There's the being that's called the mast. There's the being that's called the door to the captain's place. But we don't say that the parts of the galleon make up the galleon by the fact that they are beings, not by the fact that they're not galleons. So we don't look at that door as saying it's not a galleon. We look at the door and we say it has being, the being of a door, and it's part of galleon. So Thomas is just kind of correcting the way of looking at things, which is most of the mistakes we make in philosophy. And philosophy, remember, is not a separate part of the world. Everyone does philosophy. As I said earlier in the teaching, philosophy bakes no bread, but it's impossible to bake bread without it. And every person leaves their bed in the morning because of some philosophy. It may be very poorly composed. It may be not thought through at all, but you have some philosophy of life that's pulling you out of bed and telling you, I need to go to work in the morning. Or it's telling you, I no longer will go to work in the morning. You may have someone that has a philosophy that says, I think making money for my family is a good thing. Therefore, I'm going to get out of bed and do these things that I don't want to do for that end, for that telos. But that same person may a few weeks later say, I don't believe in, let's say they become embittered with Marxist teaching or something, and they're like, I don't believe in capitalism anymore, man. I don't want to be a capitalist, dude. These guys are just money hogging. Blah, blah, blah. Now his philosophy's changed, and he's going to say, you know what? I'm no longer going to work. In fact, I'm going to go out and protest this dark. So philosophy makes you do everything. The food you're eating, vegans eat no animal products because of a philosophy. But a person who does eat swank cheeseburgers like we have waiting for us, we're taking a little Lenten break for today, and we're calling it the pre-penumbra of Sunday's feast day because we're together and because we're celebrating. It's nice. We're doing a little mulligan for the fast today and having a little cheeseburger. So we're doing that because of a philosophy that it's okay to eat meat, et cetera, et cetera. You can knock philosophy down every little thing you do in life. So the point I'm trying to make is everyone is doing this. It's just some are doing it with more intentionality and more awareness than others. And what we want to do on this Beaver Galleon is become more and more aware of our own philosophy. As Socrates said, the famous quote, an unobserved life is not worth living. We're wanting to think how we think about thinking. We're wanting to think how we think about God. We're wanting to think, not just take everything at face value. That's why it's catechesis. You don't want to just be told that God is one and then go, okay, I believe it. You want to start contemplating why. What does that actually mean? What does that mean if God is one? Then how can there be two pins if God is one? How can there be water and ice and plants and rocks? And what is this multiplicity of things if there's just one? And what does this all mean? That's the things we're contemplating here with Thomas.
Haley says good morning.
Oh, Haley's with us. Is she on Facebook?
No,
she's on YouTube.
She's on YouTube, yeah.
Good morning. It'll be a nice day when we can meet in person. Yeah. It would be cool to get more and more people watching this and be able to have like a bigger decade party and hang out and meet people.
Great.
Yeah. All right, let's continue further and then we'll come back at the end and try to give a post-game wrap up. Reply to objection 3. After that, I'll do the Fox story.
Okay.
Reply to objection 3, which is
The Vixen
Shimon,
story.
the Vixen story.
Mm.
Many is taken in 2 ways. Absolutely, and in that sense, that is opposed to one. In another way, as importing some kind of excess, in which sense it is opposed to few. Hence, in the first sense, 2 are many, but not in the second sense. I've forgotten what objection 3 was. Further, 1 is opposed to 1, but the idea of few is opposed to many. Therefore, 1 is not opposed to many. Why he's saying 1 is opposed to 1, and one of the guys I watched to kind of see what they say about these things, he didn't understand that either. So perhaps I'll go back and ask Dr. Rebarg, why is he even, I mean, like, has Shimon been getting into the bag of reefer with
Yeah, right.
Billy Bob and
Was he trying to say that like
Plutarch?
like one must be opposed to another one?
Ah, that's probably it. And Thomas is trying to say, no, well, it's 1, 1, 1. 1 is opposed to another 1.
Mm-hmm.
Many is taken in 2 ways. Absolutely, and in that sense, it is opposed to 1. In another way, as importing some kind of excess, in which sense it's opposed to few. Hence, in the first sense, 2 are many, but not in the second sense. Have any thoughts on that, John?
I don't know. I think I get it, but I don't know how to explain
Yeah,
it.
I'm not sure how deeply I get it.
I feel like there's like a really surface level thing I'm understanding about it, and I feel like there's a deeper thing I'm not understanding about it.
Write in the comments what you guys think. I will. Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's like 2 is not excessive ever, basically.
But didn't he say 2 is many?
2 is many if it's a if it's a classification as multitude, right?
True.
If
not
it's
a
if it's
unity,
a
it's not a
classification of
one.
excess, it would be
More than 2.
more than 2 or something.
But excess is
dependent
always
on what's going
relative
on.
to how much you need.
Right.
So that's going to be relative to some kind of telos or intent. It's going to be very much tied to an intent to even call it excess. So maybe Thomas is trying to get into the idea of, now he's bringing in another aspect of humanity, if that's true. He would be bringing in the aspect of desire or heart or will and intent. So you would have thing itself, natural matter. Then you would have the idea of many, dividing it up into 10. But then you would have excess, which is very much dependent upon your goal. You can, like, if I have 3 scoops of coffee, that's just the right amount for my goal. But if I have 10 scoops of coffee, the coffee is going to be bitter and way too strong. But if my goal is to make a bag of coffee to sell in the coffee shop, then 10 is actually now too few.
It's few, yeah.
I need more. And then if the amount of coffee that would be in that bag would be 50 scoops. Germ, tell me how many. Well, you don't know how big the scoop is. It doesn't matter. Anyway, if you have this much to fill up the bag, then you have like 20 pounds, then that's an excess, etc. So excess would be very much dependent upon a telos, which would be the desire that you're going for. So now you have matter, intellect, and will coming into the thing. Body, mind, intellect, and will. So because there's these aspects of humanity, that's why it's so difficult for us humans to make always prudent and proper decisions. If you've ever had confusion in your life, if you've ever had something in your life not go the way that it should, if you've had disappointment, if you've had suffering, this is the core reason. Because the fall of man is the right alignment of our memory, intellect, and will and the right alignment of all our emotional faculties, which I think are best represented in the Kabbalistic tree of life. The Hod, Netzach, Seferet, Chesed, Gevura, all these aspects of our human nature are no longer in alignment and flowing properly. So we do things out of alignment. We do things from an intellectual perspective when it should be more the heart, or we may do things with too much heart and desire without the intellect steering it in the proper way. And so within us, we are broken. And that reality we call concupiscence or the fall or the Yetzer Hara. There's many names we have for this confusion we have. St. Teresa of Avila talks about an experience that happens in the upper realms of prayer, like let's say sixth mansions, where the soul is taken up and held by God in a divine glance. And she said the soul can also feel when that happens, he realigns your inner faculties. And she says, and then when you're brought back down into this present, what we call normal world, you realize, she said, you have a very clear realization of how broken we are. And she also said, I think that it's a painful experience because you got to experience for a few moments what none of us yet have experienced. And that is the proper alignment of all your emotional faculties, all of your heart being directed through your intellect, your memory being full of light, and your intellect seeing clearly and directed properly. So it'd be like someone who had a withered arm with painful boils, and then suddenly it's made right. They're not feeling the kind of pleasure. There's two different kinds of pleasure that's very important to understand. Ecstatic pleasure and then another kind of pleasure. They're not feeling the kind of pleasure that someone with a whole arm would feel if you take warm ointment and salve and rub it over it, or you put it close to a fire. That's a certain kind of pleasure. They're feeling the kind of pleasure of having that which is non-being, that which is not rightly oriented, suddenly made right. That's the kind of rejoicing someone has if they're, like you see those videos of people who have their cochlear implants and they can suddenly hear. That's that kind of pleasure, where her whole life she couldn't hear. Now she goes into a room and they put these things in, they turn it on, and she goes, "Can you hear?" She goes, "Yeah, Mom, I can hear you talking." And then what always happens, there's a first realization, I've heard something. Wow. A wow realization. And then they always break down and cry because they're experiencing wholeness. And that's what Teresa says that she experienced in prayer when God took her up. She experienced temporary interior wholeness and everything being rightly aligned. And then she was brought back down into this present state. So she experiences great difficulty. Other people who are visionaries relay the same suffering. They say, you don't know what it's like to be brought into this heavenly experience and then to have to come back down into this broken world with confusion, darkness. We don't know quite right if we're doing the right thing. Am I doing right? Should I be doing this? I want to do that, but I didn't. Just as Paul said, that which I want to do, I don't do. That which I don't want to do, that I do. That's our present state. So to just be aware of it as you're doing philosophy. And that's one of the, that's why we have things like science. That's why Thomas is doing science. Science, one of the sciences is logic, where we try to sidestep or we try to mitigate the damage of this bias of concupiscence. And so we have logic and we have syllogisms. And then further, God allowed science to be developed through Bacon. And we can do natural sciences now with experimentation, proper orienting of our questioning, the proper negation of certain data and how that's done. These are all things to try to mitigate our broken state and to see reality more clearly. That's the whole object of science and the object of philosophy, which, remember, science, natural sciences are serving philosophy, and philosophy is the handmaid of theology. It's all serving us to be able to try to find out what is the ground of being and come to a greater understanding of it. And that's why, as I've said over and over, Father James Brent brilliantly realized and said that the Summa is just a long, drawn-out meditation on the presence of God.
Mm.
Okay, reply to objection 4. One is opposed. I was going to tell that fox story. I'll do it after this. Remind me. One is opposed to many privatively, as a privation. One is opposed to many privatively, inasmuch as the idea of many involves division. Hence, division must be prior to unity, not absolutely in itself, but according to our way of apprehension. For we apprehend simple things by compound things, and hence we define a point to be what has no part, or the beginning of a line. Now he's getting into geometry. We define a point to be that which has no part. On the chalkboard, a point is no part. It's a 1. And it's the beginning, though, of a line. If you take that point and stretch it out, now the geometry teacher says, now you have a line, which could be said to be many points in a row. Multitude also in idea follows the 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, point, 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 point. Because we do not understand divided things to convey the idea of multitude except by the fact that we attribute unity to every part. Hence, 1 is placed in the definition of multitude, but multitude is not placed in the definition of 1. But division comes to be understood from the very negation of being. So what first comes to mind is being. Second, what comes to mind, that this being is not that being, and thus we apprehend division as a consequence. Third, what comes to mind, comes the notion of 1. Fourth, the notion of multitude. All right, that's a lot. Let's just try to wrap this up and say, when you look at something out in the world, you first apprehend being. Thomas is not saying that you think about it in that way. You don't wake up in the morning and step out your door and go, being. First, I comprehend being. Next, I'm going to comprehend 1. There's 1 tree. Now I'm going to comprehend there's a multitude of leaves and pears hanging from the tree. You don't do that. You just see being. You see 1 tree. That's the next thing that's comprehended. And then you start looking at multitudes and divisions of that thing, but you're still apprehending it as 1 thing. You're seeing multitudes, leaves, pears, but you see it as pear tree, 1 substance.
Well, that sort of does happen. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've talked to people the other day about this, actually, where it's like, if you're young and you have like your first moment of like deep thought of I am me, you are you, we are not the same thing, but here are our similarities. And then, so that to me, like, really described that process because I remember it for myself. I don't know if you ever had anything like that you remember.
I don't remember it in particular.
Yeah. I was talking with Jared, for example. Jared remembered a very particular moment. I do as well. Like, I can see the scene. It was so impactful in that moment. And it was kind of like that.
That's crazy. It could be because my childhood was so chaotic. I was just trying to survive.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Parents passed out, and I'm trying to like climb up on the counter to get sugar to have something to eat for breakfast. I'm not able to get the things still in my head.
Fair enough.
That had to come later for me, thanks be to God, by a mighty deliverance. But I do remember Mark McNeil, who's the guy who's also helping me on this project, talking about he walked in the front door of his house. He was a little kid, and he was standing there, and it's like he came online.
Yeah.
He remembers the first time he was conscious.
Yeah.
And
I don't remember almost anything after that or before that or whatever, but that one moment is super solidified in my mind. I can see the environment in front of me.
See, we could go into, this is a nighttime talk thing, but we could go really deep in this because
Steve has it too. Steve had that too.
Because what that is, that's really a tragedy. That's really a sad thing, but it's also the tragedy that brings a greater glory. It's the first time the rabbis say, and I'll just use this as a metaphor. By the way, when I say the rabbis say, I'm talking about Hazal, the ancient rabbis, like Gamaliel, who taught St. Paul and these old guys. And these older rabbis were taking things that they heard from all the way from Mount Sinai. Now you can dispute, did they know it for true? Of course we don't know, and then gets into a big long thing. But when I say the rabbis say, don't worry about, is this true or not? Don't get so caught up in it. Just use it as a way. If you want to take it as a parable, fine, take it as a parable. If you want to take it as just a metaphor, fine, take it as a metaphor. It's not necessary to get in the weeds and get upset about what exactly is true of this or that thing. So what the rabbis say that each person is taught the Torah, and by Torah they mean the living Torah. It's what we Catholics would say is the Logos, or who became man in the Virgin's womb and received the name Jesus. But that Logos, that initial Torah, remember the rabbis say the universe was made by Torah, which is the word of God, Deber Elohim. So it's the word of God, and Jesus is the word of God. It's all the same. So they're saying that the Torah is taught to the little child in the womb by an angel. And the child in the womb knows the entire Torah. So remember what you're saying. We're saying here, we're not saying that the baby knows how to properly do a Tamud sacrifice in the temple and where the blood is sprinkled and all the stuff that the Torah says to do. It's because all of those things, as Paul says, are pointing to Christ. These are further divisions and further evidences of our brokenness. Remember, Paul said that the person who has loving kindness doesn't need Torah, doesn't need the law. Just realize that. It's all going back to this vision of God, unbroken, that's in the Trinitarian love relationship. So this baby is being taught Torah, and then when he comes out, an angel spanks it, like smacks it, a gentle smack for all you goofy people who are, angel smacks, angels wouldn't smack. A gentle smack. And he forgets all of his Torah. And then his process is to go out into this world on a D&D adventure and gain back all your boons, but with different kinds of treasures now. It's not just given to you. You're going through the adventure now to gain it. But it still had to be imprinted on you so that there would be some kind of a kli, a receptacle to receive it. And that's what the angel did to you, so say Hazal, in this early stage. So what is happening when you have that revelation that you're separate is your first experience of not being in the unity of Torah. You're not in your childlike joy, and it's the first step out of your childlike bliss of Torah knowledge and the division. The first experience of division, which is an illusion, but it's also true. And what will happen is we will all come back. Everyone who's on this ride, on this adventure, which is all of you watching because you're alive, all of us who have been spewed out from the divine exhale into this adventure will eventually be brought back home, but with a deeper understanding of what home truly is. And then, as it says in scripture, at the end, God will again be all in all. And we will understand truly, as Thomas perhaps did in his final vision, of how the multitude is one, and the one can express or apprehend a multitude. That's why when Thomas finished his vision, he said, this is all straw, burn it. Because it can't get to the reality. You, Steve, you, Germ, you, Haley, you have to experience the reality. It's good to study these things, but study them as straw. That gets you to meditate on the things of God instead of, as I said, Netflix and the news and all that, which is just people talk about these conspiracy theories. They're just doing this war to get you off the real thing they're doing, which is your economy, or they're just doing this economy thing to get you off the real thing they're doing. War. There are all these ideas that they're tricking you to get you off the real thing. Well, guess what? Watching all of those things is the real trick to get you off the real thing, which is studying the things of God and meditating on them in silence, and then coming to that experience which Thomas did. All right, let's do the Fox joke, and then the end of, and then we're on Article 3, which of course we won't say anything about because we'll be talking about it more tomorrow. But we'll finish it off because it's the daily Summa. The Fox story. We were talking about not being so uptight in religion. I remember I had a friend of mine come to visit me with Mike Whitebread, and we were doing Sabbath evening 1, and so I was going to light the candles. This girl was in no wise Christian. Very, she was woke before there was woke. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And also one of my favorite human beings on earth. I just love her. And I don't want to say her name, but she'll know who I'm talking about from the story. But she's so smart, amazing, beautiful artist. But when it comes to religion, she's all free form and, relaxed, chill, cool. But when we started doing the candle lighting thing, I said, "Do you want to light the candles?" And it was like that whole religious thing that probably had oppressed her as a child.
Mm.
That's how she perceived religion, right?
Mm.
Like I grew up in the house of an atheist, so I don't have that kind of hang-ups with religion,
Right.
what people who grew up in it did. But that whole darkness came on her, and she goes, "Well, what do I have to do?" She would never act like that.
Mm.
Like if we were out playing guitars, I was like, "Hey, can you help me set up my amp and mic?" She'd be like, "Sure. What do I do?" But because it's religion, now now you can see the satanic trick and darkness that we're all in. It's a big, long trick. She becomes this type of person that I've never seen in her. Well, what do I have to do? And I was like, well, first of all, you don't even have to do it. But second, just light the candles. She goes, "You mean just light them?" Yeah, just light the candles. So I can understand why people don't go into religion and stuff. But guys, you've been tricked. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it really is with people who are really religious and have come out of the world and gone through all the cleansing of all that stuff and realized the trick and everything, now they're in more of a peaceful, centered relationship with God and each other and humanity and life. They're in the monastery. And this was what happened at Christ the Bridegroom Monastery. I'm praying with the nuns. There was no one else in the room. It was like early morning. We were doing matins or whatever. And it was just me and the nuns. And so we're all chanting the Psalms. And then suddenly, one of the nuns leaves the choir and goes and walks over to a window and just stands facing the window, looking out. And I'm like, "Whoa, did somebody call an audible? Like, what the heck's going on? I've never seen this move on the court, you know?" And then another nun walks from the choir and stands by the window. And then a third. And I'm like, oh, I'm chanting along. I'm way in the back. Like I stand kind of in the back and they're up like around the choir stalls. Not stalls, but stations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what's going on? And then Mother Natalia goes up. And then she finally turns, because she loves me and she's kind and thoughtful. She turns and she walks back and she leans in. She goes, "There's a mother fox out there with her babies and we're all looking at it. It's been out there for the past few days. Come look." So now I'm like walking with Mother Natalia and we go up past the choir up into like the icon wall in the Byzantine chapel. And we're all staring out, chanting the Psalms, me surrounded by nuns, and we're watching this mother and the little foxes play. And we're still chanting. And one of the foxes like fight with the other and then knock him over, and then we giggle. And then after the fox and the mom left, we just all went back to our things and kept chanting. We're looking at each other, smiling, and still in the presence of God, people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what God wants you to be like. I mean, I understand how people are nowadays with religion because you grew up in it. I did not. So I don't have I don't understand it in that way. But being around religious people more and more, I kind of realize why people are turned off to it. But guys, just come back. We need the cool people to come back and be like white blood cells in the system and get these other religious people to chill out a little bit, and get back into study some Thomas. Go out and do some prayers with us. Hit up Mass. Come and smoke a pipe on the porch. Hit us up at the cigar lounge and just relax and enjoy life like God wants us, has always wanted us to do, man. Let's have some fun in this thing. Maybe then there won't be so many terrible things happening. If people can be more prayerful and joyful together in it. All right, dude. Let's do Article 3. Article 3, whether God is one. Of course he is. But Larry's going to be contrary.
Yep.
Objection 1, it seems that God is not one, for it is written, "For there be many gods and many lords." Come on, Larry. He's just being contrary because he knows what that means.
Yeah.
He knows it's talking about polytheism. Larry. And objection 2, further, 1 as the principle of number cannot be predicated of God, since quantity is not predicated of God. Likewise, neither can 1 be current, blah, 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 blah. That's the end of the page. We're done. This is All Straw. Go meditate and pray and have a wonderful